Ron.
I have two questions. One is, these days it seems that everybody in the government is focused on how are they going to increase their share of the stimulus money and where is the stimulus money going? So my question there is, how does that affect the M2M space, and what do you guys see as any kind of trend developing, with wind, solar, other clean energy, et cetera? The other thing is, I don't have a sense from listening to you about what the role of incumbents is. And, I think, I keep flashing back, only one reference has been made today to nanotech. I think this gentleman over here mentioned it, right? And this keeps reminding me of nanotech when it got started. Is it a legitimate concept? Was it just a marketing ploy? Because it really spans so many different industries. So my question is, really, what's the relative role of startups versus the large incumbent companies in this area, which I'm very unfamiliar with, I have to admit.
Okay, who wants to take question number one? Yeah, which one was one?
The first
Stimulus,
question is
stimulus money.
Stimulus money.
Okay, stimulus stimulating M2M. And how's the smart grid plans? I think we're going to get to that later, but we might as well jump into it now.
Well, Lundin, you always put the important questions at the end, and I like to get them up front.
Okay, you're going to get your questions answered. So it's stimulus stimulating M2M, and how does that part of the greater smart grid plan? We do actually have a presentation at 2 o'clock by Brian Quirk from the DOE talking about the $38 billion in stimulus money that's being spent on smart grid initiatives. That out of the way, take it away, Jeff.
Okay, so from a stimulus standpoint, a large part of the package, and I've been through the bill, trying to ferret out where the opportunities are, but certainly one large part of it is there's going to be millions and millions of dollars that are going to be spent on smart meters, okay? So if you need to, that market is incredibly complex and it's driven by utilities. So, who the heck wants to go into a market that's incredibly complex, driven by utilities? But let's just say that we do. Then from a meter standpoint, the big problem is that there's a whole bunch of companies that already make plays out there that basically have their own proprietary technology. And so we've got complicated interfaces. So it's not only complicated technologies, it's complicated interfaces. And they're not even standard interfaces. And one of the things that's really held back this marketplace is it's not simple enough. The infrastructure is not simple enough. And what makes simple? Simple interfaces, simple technology. So really complex. So where are a lot of the plays within the smart grid? And I've never heard anybody really define what the smart grid is, but I've taken lots of classes and from Dr. Chen and others that basically have designed the smart grid and really from an infrastructure standpoint, the first thing that needs to be deployed are simple sensors and simple interfaces to the sensors. But then the opportunities relative to when you hear about recurring revenue is software as a service and software platforms and things like that. Well, do you think that utility companies are going to outsource those kinds of things? It's not going to happen.
I can add something to that. I think, when we think of M2M, come back to your question, we see it as an enabling technology that creates connectivity in networks. So whether it's, we invest in a company called PowerIt that creates a network of energy-consuming devices in industrial facilities and then optimizes the energy usage across that network. When I think about how the incumbents are playing in all of this, now you're seeing in smart grid, which is basically one level of smart grid is taking the electrical grid, which is a dumb grid that has one-way communication, take many, many networks at the home level, community level, and then ultimately at the grid level. We're seeing, as that has now become much more clear and transparent in terms of government investment going into this utility investment, you are seeing a lot of the incumbents come and play. Google, AT&T, T-Mobile, Cisco, IBM. IBM has a $2.5 billion financing commitment to its customers to finance smart grid investments. So half of what the government, $4.5 billion government dollars is going into smart grid. IBM's putting in half of that, and a lot of that's focused on smart grid. So we are seeing the incumbents move into this area, and I think to come back to the question on exit and this idea of shoulder investments, you don't have to have huge niches to play in this. What we look for actually is, we believe that just like the internet, where you had a couple of big home runs like eBay and Google, most of the technologies were really harnessed by the incumbents to grow their businesses further. And some of those companies then bought smaller companies to help facilitate that. We love those kind of plays. We're actually looking for, what's Honeywell, Siemens, Rockwell, Schneider, Emerson, what are they doing in the smart grid, in energy efficiency, in building controls? And we look to find companies that will facilitate those business models and growth in those companies, however small the niche, so you know, to sell our companies to them. We're happy to help ram those technologies through their distribution channels. That's much more effective than building an entire distribution model.
Did you want to add something to that?
Now, you know, I'd say only the first point of your question on the stimulus side. Our firm has primarily been focused on the broadband aspect of stimulus funding, which is really the underlying network that's powering these devices. We often have taken the approach when there's a big question mark about how these businesses are going to work out, we'll just go with the safest bet. That's often real estate. We've invested in a lot of wireless spectrum over the years. In this case, building the networks that are powering these devices, it's pretty easy. The business models are established, and the funding mechanisms are pretty well laid out. So we've looked at a number of plans there, and are continue in that space.